So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we've got another fantastic guest on. So he's a guy that I'm following on Twitter, got some fantastic content. He's a kinesiologist and lifestyle medicine coach, Mr. John Constas. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, Oliver. Thank you. How about you?
I'm well, man. I'm well. Kicking off Monday, 1st of March, new start, motivating, man. I love it. Yourself?
Getting ready for March as well, man. It seems like we've been living a long day. It seems like the days and the months are just flying by. You blink, it's like already spring, it's winter. I'm just lost. It's crazy how fast time's going.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I think it's a good time for things to go fast, though, because the quicker it goes faster, hopefully the quicker we can get out of these lockdowns and start living life, man. That's what I hope anyway.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that as soon as possible. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Fantastic. So it's great to have you on, dude. And for the audience that may not know who you are, do you just want to give a brief introduction into John and what he's all about?
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, my name is John Constas. For people that don't know me, I've been very passionate about health and medicine on Twitter. My following is really, passionate about holistic medicine, lifestyle medicine, incorporating fitness, diet, lifestyle habits into your daily routine to making sure that you stay healthy. My goal in life is kind of to use my background in science and help educate the common man as to what can be done to take care of their biology, essentially. So, just a little bit of a background on me. I have two bachelors, one in kinesiology and one in biology. And, the reason why I had such a long university career was because I was always passionate about medicine. I loved the field of health. I loved the idea of helping people. Many people in my family were also doctors, pharmacists. So the whole concept of helping others and medicine has been ingrained with me since I was a child. The reason why I ended up doing two bachelors is I was trying to get into med school, and as time has gone by, it's become a lot more competitive. And I think at the point in time where I was a college student, I had a lot of difficulty concentrating. I had a lot of difficulty focusing. I was a hard worker, but due to the lifestyle I was living, drinking, partying, going out, not sleeping, I found it very difficult to concentrate and focus on things. And when it came to testing, I was an anxious wreck. I just couldn't. I would spend hours and hours studying, and when it came to taking an exam, like I just would blank out and things just go. I don't know where to go from there. So that's kind of the reason why I ended up staying in school a bit longer. I wanted to try to keep going into the medical field and working in medicine. And after the second bachelor, I said, I've gained so much knowledge. I've done so much schooling. Like, I'm fed up. It's been 5 years now. Like, I want to change scenery. I need to take the next step. So like the first instinct that came to me was like, oh, like I should go work in pharma. Like, I love medicine. Like, pharma seems like another great way to like build a career and make money. Medications. And so that was like my introduction to the work field. I ended up progressing to an outside sales rep. So I was going to pharmacies and pushing products there. And then during that time, like I just, even before that, I was kind of always hesitant. I was like, is it truly just about taking medicine and taking pills? Is that really what health is all about? I was always training from about this age of 16 years old. I've been training. So I always was an active person. I knew how important exercise was for my well-being and particularly for my mental well-being. And, I wanted to find a way where I can incorporate my love for lifestyle, fitness, and that sort of thing into my career. So as special as the universe is, let's say I was 1 or 2 years into my pharmaceutical sales rep position. I was given an opportunity to move up in the company. It caused a lot of stress. I just felt like I wasn't ready. It didn't feel right. So I was also going through a tough time personally at that point. So I was extremely stressed, extremely depressed, everything was just like dark for me. It was a very dark moment in my life. And, you know, after having recently not gotten accepted into medical school, everything was a burden in my mind. So I kind of decided like it was time for a change. It was time to look for something different. And lo and behold, I got an opportunity to work for a supplement company called Orthomolecular Products. And they are a world, I would say a leader in the North American market for teaching doctors how to do functional medicine. So for those of you who don't know what functional medicine is, it is looking at health and solving health problems by looking at the root cause rather than dealing with just managing symptoms, which is what kind of, you know, what the mainstream medical field is kind of doing at the moment. So to me, it was like a dream come true. I could combine my knowledge of science and all the background that I've gotten in school with fitness, lifestyle, what to do, how you should do things. And it was a perfect harmony. And it was like almost like a gift from God, essentially, where I was just like, wow, like this is like the, you know, I went on the website before my interview and I was listening to the president speak and I was like, oh, like this is exactly what I think about health, you know, like, you know, the ecosystem of your body, of your environment, how you sleep, all these things were just, everything was like, wow, like this is where I need to be. And, you know, as fortune has it, I got the job. And I've been working for them for the past 5 years now. And, you know, at the same time, like maybe it was like 2-3 years ago, I had a friend of mine who, you know, was very impressed about all the stuff I knew and how I was training the doctor. And he's like, you know, I had a bit of a chat with him and I was explaining different things. He's like, dude, like, I don't understand what the hell you're saying, but if you could find a way to make it like very basic so that anybody will understand this, I think you have something that you could offer to people. And I was like, like that was like the spark. And I had a friend of mine on Twitter and he's like, dude, just go on Twitter. Like he had tried all the other venues and he's like, Twitter for me is like the place where everybody wants to learn. So get on Twitter and start sharing what you know. And that connection on Twitter was like, I have the knowledge that I'm teaching doctors, right? It's a different language. When you're speaking to a clinician and you're speaking to like, you know, not a doctor or such a common, it's a completely different conversation because, and that was a big issue I always felt was in the scientific field is that people don't know how they're talking about between each other. But then when it comes to the patient, they don't understand anything. They're just like, they don't even know what medication they're taking. So there's a disconnect between the doctors, which is the science, and the common man, which is, you know, they don't understand that they're speaking two different languages. So I made my brand all about teaching these scientific principles and these foundational health principles to anybody that wants to learn and understand how their body works. And so that's why I've built a nice following, and it's been a great journey. I've met a bunch of good people along the way that have helped me, and it's been fun so far. So yeah,
epic, John.
Having a great time.
Oh, I think you cut out there.
Yeah, man.
Oh, good. Yeah, all good, man. That's fantastic, man. A lot to unpack from that. A fantastic story. You've been through a lot of kind of the science side of things, the studying side, but you've also had some life experiences that have been up and down, which I think is very interesting as well, right? Because you've not just studied, you've gone through the process yourself of, you know, certain health aspects. And I think it's great to have that skin in the game too. And I think it's good. The one thing that I love about your content is the fact that you simplify everything, right? It's just so easy to read and it's so nice for everybody to understand. And it's the same with fitness, right? You get these guys talking, using these big words, but the mainstream, your general population are never going to understand it. And that switches people off. And I think to educate people, it's all about breaking it down as simply as possible, as if this person was very stupid or, you know, not to disrespect them, but they just don't know anything at all. And you just need to explain it to your grandma, right? That's the kind of level that you want to do it. And I think you do that really well. My question to you was, what made you want to go into kinesiology and become a kinesiologist?
I think it was what sparked that kind of interest was I had a cousin of mine who was going to go into med school, and he had gone into kinesiology prior to getting in Ireland to go to medical school. And so I was like, oh, like it seems pretty interesting. I like the concept of exercise was always something that was fascinating to me. Like I said, mentioned before, since I was a teenager, I was exercising. So it just seemed like a good alley to go through to have an interest in what I'm learning and eventually get accepted into a professional school. The kinesiology aspect, what it really brought to me is understanding the biomechanics, understanding the anatomy, the physiology, the biochemistry. So that was, one of the things that I'm very grateful for that whole experience is that it brought a lot of fundamental science that to my training, into my understanding of how the body works. My philosophy is like, if you understand how your body works, you can fix whatever issues you have, you can solve whatever problems you have. Just like, understanding anatomy, if this muscle connects to that part, you can, and you're feeling pain in that part, well, then you can do the right movements and do the right things to fix that problem. So it was a very essential of my learning journey, and I'm very grateful for it. And then going back and doing a second bachelor in biology just like fortified it. I was doing biochemistry, I was doing physiology. Like I did biochemistry twice, actually, both courses. And I was just like, dude, like, when am I gonna ever use this stuff? Like, it's like so complicated, so precise. Like, what's the purpose of this? Like, I was thinking, like, if I'm gonna become a doctor, like, why would I care about that? I'm just gonna be giving a pill. Like, I'm not gonna talk about biochemistry with my patient. And like, it ended up coming, like, it was there for a reason. It was there to assist me later on in building, a potential business, building a brand and building myself as I hate using the word expert because I find that word has been destroyed, but somebody that knows what he's talking about, essentially. And the goal is for me to relay all that knowledge and create the connections in a very simple way so that everybody could understand and get the results they're looking for. The other thing I would say is, for me, being sick and being depressed and being in a state where my whole brain, my biology was a mess, and having to figure things out on my own and learn and make the connections and understand how important nutrition and nutrients were to my mental health. That just, that was kind of like a byproduct of my education. It was challenges came across my path, and I had to use what I had learned to solve it. So, one of my favorite quotes is, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way," which is Marcus Aurelius. And the whole Stoic philosophy of like, take your challenges, embrace them, and use them to propel you forward. That's been like the summary of my entire life. Like, everything that's happened to me at all moments has always been like, I've had a challenge and I've worked hard to overcome it. And at the end of the day, like, by doing that, I've been able to help others at the same time. So it's been great. It's been fantastic.
Absolutely, man. I love that. And I'm a huge fan of the Stoic philosophy as well. Marcus Aurelius and all of that stuff is fantastic. One question I had for you was, you touched on it earlier around kind of, you got big pharma and then kind of functional medicine. And there's kind of two distinct differences there. But, for the mainstream or for the audience, they may not understand that. So would you be able to kind of explain a little bit around kind of the differences between them?
So when you're looking at what big pharma is doing and what functional medicine is doing, is the way they kind of make the line in the sand between both right now, in my view, is one is using very much strong gold standard science, as we call it. So a gold standard science scientific experiment is something called a double-blind placebo-controlled study. And so what they do is they give patients a drug, they choose a drug, and they have something called a placebo, which is essentially just a sugar pill. And they have both parties take it. Nobody knows who's taking what. And then after these things are taken for X amount of time in a large population size, a big sample size, they determine, okay, compared to the placebo, this drug was X times more effective. Usually it has to be around 30 to 40% more effective than a placebo for it to be considered an effective drug. So first of all, the big issue and where I see functional medicine having a lot of trouble becoming a mainstream accepted modality is the fact that they don't have the funds to be doing these scientific papers. It's millions and millions of dollars that have to be injected. And who really has that kind of money, right? It's the pharmaceutical industry. It's it's a $1 trillion industry. These people have money to make as many research papers and high quality research papers as possible. So the biggest hurdle I see with functional medicine being widely accepted, is that aspect of being able to provide the strong scientific proof that this, let's say, supplement or this modality is an effective one that we can use in worldwide in all medical practices. So they've kind of made that like paywall, where if you can't pay, then unfortunately you're never going to be an accredited modality per the mainstream medical system. Now, I'm kind of seeing things shifting a lot, because a lot of doctors are doing this allopathic medicine, this mainstream medicine, and they're just noticing themselves. They're like, I'm giving my patients all these meds. They're never getting off these meds. Like, what's happening? Like, maybe they are living longer, but like, can I improve the quality of these people's lives? Can I be doing something more? So slowly but surely, like, these doctors are, who have been definitely indoctrinated during their medical school career, are asking questions. They're saying, hey, like, what about nutrition? What about, sleeping better? What about managing stress? So they start looking, and that's where they kind of stumble upon holistic medicine or functional medicine. They're very much interchanged, but I'd say functional medicine is like the next big step, because they're a lot more precise than, let's just say, a homeopath who is working with energetic medicine and that sort of thing. Functional medicine has diagnostic testing, where they'll test your stool, they'll test your saliva, they'll test different parameters in your body to see how your hormones are, to see how healthy your gut is. So it's getting it's kind of like, there's a slow evolution of where medicine needs to go. Why I think functional medicine is the future is that they make medicine personalized. It's not this cookie cutter, oh, you've got high cholesterol, drug. Oh, you've got this, drug. It's, hey, we have this problem. There is, it's presenting itself in the brain through a mental health issue, but, is it because they're not digesting their proteins properly? Are they not absorbing what they eat properly? Are they sleeping poorly? So, it's like the future of what medicine needs to be is personalizing a treatment based on what the patient is presenting himself with when they come to see you. And that's why doctors are very interested in functional medicine, is because they see the potential. They get the concept that, we're in this kind of this belief system that you're born with genes, and whatever these genes say is what your demise shall be, right? If your family had cholesterol, well, you're gonna have cholesterol. If your family had severe depression, then you're gonna probably have severe depression. The big problem with that is that they leave out a very key aspect of what genetics is, and it's called epigenetics, which is turning these genes on and off. How do you do that? Managing stress, eating well, exercising, sleeping. These are all things that, if you teach people how to do them right, you increase the odds of them being healthy long term by switching these genes on and off. And that's where I think functional medicine is very, very focused on, is that they're looking at the epigenetic aspect. What can we do overall in the person's life to enhance the genetic outcome that will happen long term? You're like yourself, you're passionate about fitness. People who are passionate about fitness and eat well and take care of their bodies, the odds of them being healthy later on in life dramatically increase. This is science. This is not, pseudoscience. This is real things. And the only issue now is having it being accepted by the mainstream and having it be, teaching these doctors how to do these things, because they don't know. Like, they've been trained in school for 4 years using a book subsidized by the pharmaceutical industry that talks about nutrition for 3 hours. Like, I don't know if you saw my post the other day, but like, a radiologist, specialist doctor, not, never have learning anything about nutrition. People are gonna say, oh, well, radiologist doesn't recommend, doesn't have to tell people how to eat. Well, no, that's not the point. The point is the medical system, the medical schools themselves aren't prioritizing nutrition. I think people trust doctors and people trust what they say. So they should be saying the top quality information. We're lucky in Canada and the UK, we don't really have to pay for doctors. It's all paid by our taxes. But in the US, you go see a doctor, it's $700 for 30 minutes US, right? So it costs a lot of money. And that's why I feel like in the United States, they're a lot more advanced when it comes to medicine, because they have no choice. It's either they adapt and they start working on being healthier, or they're going to pay the price later on. So you pay the price now and you invest in yourself, or they make you pay the price later, which is painful and suffering and very, 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 very expensive. So I'm all about, at the end of the day, it's why I love functional medicine and why I'm in that field, is because it's about prevention. It's about helping people make the right choices every single day, little things by little thing by little thing. And those small things add up over a lifetime, and that's how you increase your odds of being healthy and being happy and being vibrant, essentially.
Love that. And that's why I'm a big fan of that functional medicine you talk about, because there is bio-individuality, right? When you look at a person. And the problem, I think, with big pharma is, it's that one size fits all approach, very cookie cutter. And that with functional medicine, from what you're saying, it's kind of like personalize it to the individual. Take an example of gut health, for instance, right? For one person, they might have to restrict certain foods or avoid certain foods because of their gut. However, another person can eat that freely and they can go to bed okay, they can go to the toilet okay, and they're absolutely fine. And that's a difference, isn't it, between kind of that functional and that big pharma side of things. It's very specific, it's very personalized, and you have to not look at things in binary. And I do think that a lot of potentially what's happening in medicine is that binary thinking towards stuff that probably isn't healthy for people going forward. I also think as well, Zuby, he put a good tweet out saying that healthcare is basically looking after your diet, looking after your nutrition, looking after your sleep, and sick care is basically the current healthcare system, right? And it's kind of true, right? It's prevention versus the symptoms. And it seems that the healthcare system at the minute is all around the symptoms that people are having, right? And trying to diagnose those instead of looking at the root cause of the issues.
Exactly. So, the deficiencies I see is that they look at the body through like a straw, right? They're looking at one part. The patient comes in, they got this symptom, and they go and they look and they're like, okay, well, if you have this symptom, it means that you have potentially this. So here's a drug for that. And we'll, as the symptoms go down, if we'll look at your blood test and the number goes down, that means you're getting healthier. And that's, again, you're looking at the body with a microscope rather than looking at the whole big picture. And that's where, that's why I do what I do, is I want people to look at the big picture. It's not just one, it's never just one thing. It's everything. It's the communication of your environment to your body, to the ecosystem that's happening within you. Everything's connected. That's what I try to get as my message across, is I want people to not look at things as X equals Y equals Z. It's everything's connected. Health is everything. It's not just doing one thing. It's not just sleeping well. It's not just taking a supplement. It's not just exercising. It's doing everything as much as possible, obviously within limit, because you have a balance. You don't want to go too much either, and go the opposite way, where you're overstimulating your body and you're overstressing your body. It's about finding the balance. In biology, we have this term called homeostasis, which is the harmony of all the biological systems that are happening within you. And our body, our natural, the wisdom of our body is there to keep us within that balance. The second we move out, we'll go back in. The second we move out, we'll go back in. But if we do too much of that moving out back and forth, then eventually the best way to imagine your homeostasis is like an elastic band, right? You're going to stretch it, you're going to stretch it, you're going to stretch it, it's going to come back. But over time, if you overstretch it, it becomes all floppy and it can't come back to its original size. That's where disease sets in. That's where severe stress, sleep issues, just fatigue overall. It's about looking at the whole picture. It's about giving the body the resilience, I call it, resilience to stick within that tight homeostatic frame of balance, harmony. And that's where all the things we talk about, nutrition, fitness, exercise, they all come in. They create that resiliency to that elastic band that, even if you do push yourself off the sides once in a while, or you don't sleep well, or you go out and party, you're not gonna be destroyed after that. You're gonna be able to come back to that balance. And that's what I try to teach my followers, is that you can build that resiliency over time by doing the right things every single day. So yeah,
100%. And I'm a big advocate of that as well, because with a lot of the audience that are listening and the clients, they may have times where they do indulge in potentially going out and drinking or having some unhealthy food. But like you said, it's about coming back to that foundation, that middle, where it's, okay, cool, this isn't going to affect me that much because I eat well, 5-6 days a week. I exercise 3 to 5 days a week. I look after my sleep. And like you said, you become a lot more anti-fragile when you're in that kind of state, because you're a lot fitter, you're a lot healthier. It makes a lot of sense, which I think is cool. And you spoke previously around kind of the depression that you had and kind of that low point in your life. And obviously now that you're out of that, reflecting back, what do you think some of the biggest drivers were for you to change your kind of general state, your health, your mindset when you're in that way?
I would say it was just the pain that you feel when you're sick, or when you're not feeling energized, or when you're not feeling happy, or when you're not feeling like you can get things done. That pain is what forced me to change. It was almost like I had lived this life before, and I was doing all these things with no care in the world, and look what it brought me. It brought me pain and misery. And I was like, you know what? Like, I've been through pain and misery before. Like, I'm gonna find a way to get out of it. I know that I can do it. I just had this self-belief that I can heal. That's what I always try to mention to people too, is you have to believe you can heal. If you're sick and you just think that's like you're gonna be like that for the rest of your life, and that's your destiny, then that it will remain that way. But if you have deep inside your mind this philosophy that I can overcome anything that comes my way, I just, as long as I put in the work and I eat the right things, and I supplement whatever I'm missing, I could get to where I need to go. But it all depends on me. That's what I want people. That's what I try to teach everybody that works with me, is that you got to take self-responsibility for your actions and your results. If you don't believe that you can get something done and you don't put in that work, that sounds cliche, right? But it really is the fundamental of success, is that you notice there's a problem, you feel that pain. That's what I try to tell people too, is observe the pain. Instead of just feeling like you're a victim to it, look at it, face it, be like, okay, I'm feeling this way. I need to do something about it immediately, because if I continue this way, who knows how bad it's going to get. So I'm a kind of a fear-driven guy. I always looked at like, what would happen? What was the worst case scenario for me? Some people are going to be different, right? Some people are going to be more of like having a whole system and following that system. For me, the way I take action is by I'm a fear action. Fear induces my action, essentially. So I just, imagined the worst possible thing. And I was like, I do not want this. This is not for me. This is not my purpose in this one life, this one precious life that we have here. I got to do something about it, and I'm going to succeed. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to figure it out. And, I was just really blessed to have people, it's almost as if when you put that in your mind, the right people come in your path to help you and guide you out of it. And when I had my severe depression, I was lucky to, ask myself the question, do I go see a doctor and get put in a pill for the rest of my life and be miserable because deep down I knew it was never going to heal me? Or could I go find something natural, be curious, test things out? And so I went and I got to speak to, I spoke to a naturopath. He gave me some herbs, and it was like magic. Like, I had been suffering for months. And then within 2-3 days, just taking a simple herb like ashwagandha and rhodiola changed my stress completely. And I was just like, why did I know this? Why didn't my doctor tell me? All the doctors I had seen were like, oh, it's all in your head, man. Take your time, relax, take it easy. Here's some anti-inflammatories. Here's this, here's that. And I was like, no, there is something wrong there, but why can't somebody give me an answer? And that pain of not being able to get an answer was my driving factor to create my brand on Twitter, to create a portal, per se, where people can come, and if they can ask me questions, they can read through my tweets, they can learn about different issues they're having, and just gain a deeper understanding of what's happening, so they can take the next steps to fix it, hopefully, and feel better. So, I'm really doing this for the collective. I care about everybody that follows me. I care about bringing my knowledge and simplifying science, which is a very complicated language for them. And, that's my goal, is to just bring my message to as many people as possible, and having that background of being able, I was telling myself, I'm teaching doctors how to do this. If I can teach a doctor how to do this, I can teach the general population how to do this 10 times better, right? It's just it would be so much easier. So, what I like about Twitter is people are hungry for knowledge. They're hungry to learn. And that's why I keep going, because I just get the positive feedback from the information I share, and, getting messages daily of, John, you told me this, and if I feel XYZ better for XYZ reason, that's the most fulfilling thing I could ever have. I never imagined this, right? I never thought, when I was having all these problems, health problems, I was like, oh, in 5 years from now, I'm going to be helping people, and people are going to be thanking me for the knowledge, and all this pain that I went through was for a reason, right? But it just came out that way. And so that's why I try to inspire people to, when they have an issue, face it, confront it, believe you can solve it, and then literally the universe will give you the path to solve it, as long as you believe you can. Everything comes down to belief, and health is the same thing. If you can believe you can be healthy, you will be healthy. That's where I find mainstream medicine has completely, if belief in the brain and the mind isn't such a huge factor in wellness, but to me it is. And in functional medicine as well, it is very important. Brain and how you treat your brain, and the connection that your brain has with the rest of your, the brain's the master organ. If the brain isn't healthy, and the brain doesn't believe, and the brain isn't taken care of, forget it. You're gonna be on pills for the rest of your life, and you're never gonna solve the problem. And that's where the disconnect for me is with mainstream and functional medicine too. Is we need to change the paradigm, make people trust their doctors. They wait for their doctors to give them an answer, but they don't give them an answer. That's the problem. And that's why people go on the internet to find an answer, because they don't get it from the regular system, right? It doesn't make sense to me. And that's what I almost am militant for this, is I want, people to know this. I want people to ask their doctors questions, test their doctors, and see if the doctor actually cares. Some doctors are just, it's an ego thing too. It's it should always be about helping others. That's my message. And it's not to discredit doctors. We need them. They are essential. We need these people. And all I'm saying is that I want the conversation to be had. That's it. I want doctors and patients to have more conversations in order to, down the line, we're going to improve all of society that way. It's not just, my brand growing, it's the whole world changing. If people can have these conversations and doctors can be educating their patients as more than what they're doing now, or, and I understand it could be a time thing, but build the infrastructures, the systems that everybody can work together. Doctors can work with trainers, trainers can work with dietitians or nutrition, all these things, everything has to be connected. And that's where functional medicine, for me, is why it's the future, is that they're already in that mindset. We work with everybody, everybody's together. It's not like I'm the doctor and I have the opinion and everybody else is like second class to me, right? Like it has to be the comprehensive web of health needs to be reconnected. It's what it used to be that way. I mean, back in the day when there wasn't the pharmaceutical industry, all these things were all connected. People had to look at different modalities. Now it's like there's one modality. If you don't believe in that modality, you're a quack, you're a pseudoscientist, you're all these things. And to me, it's just like instead of looking deeper, it's just like, oh, like forget it. It's not true. It's not good science. We're not even going to check it. So
Yeah,
it is
for
what it
sure.
is, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think you touched on a good point there about kind of people working in silos, right? And you find with certain industries, they just work alone and there's no crossover between understanding. And a big reason why I kind of set up this podcast was because, I am a fitness coach. I mainly focus on body transformations, muscle gain, fat loss, but that doesn't mean that I can't obtain value from learning about lifestyle medicine or, getting a sleep expert on and learning more about sleep, because there are so many crossovers here, which are going to help me train my clients or the audience listening train themselves, right? All of these things are intertwined. And you touched on a really good point around ashwagandha there, and you said that was a big kind of change to help you reduce your stress. And the audience that are listening, a lot of them are kind of quite high stress guys and girls. So what is ashwagandha and kind of how was it effective to you?
So ashwagandha is an adaptogen, and adaptogens are actually these herbs. It's just, when I talk about herbs, it kind of fascinates me how smart nature is, right? It can create these things through evolution where you have this herb and you consume it and it adapts how your own biology reacts to certain situations. So for example, what do adaptogens do? What does something like ashwagandha do? People that are anxious or highly stressed, they're producing a lot of cortisol, which is your stress hormone. And so you have these small little organs on top of your kidneys called adrenals. And your adrenals are connected to the brain. So just a 101 how stress works. Your brain perceives the environment, it calculates all these things and says, okay, it's stressful. So that brain signal goes from the brain called the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland, which is another part of the brain. And then the pituitary gland sends a signal to these adrenals, which are your stress hormone organs. And what it does is that adrenals release cortisol. So you can imagine stress is like a fire, and cortisol is the water to turn off the fire. So you have like a cycle, an internal water sprinkler system that turns off the flames of stress with the help of cortisol, which is your water, right? The problem is if you have, this was very effective in the past when your ancestors were hunting a bear, for example, and they had that fight or flight response. It's either I'm going to fight this bear and try to kill it, or I'm going to run away like hell and escape, right? So it was a very short-term system that would work, right? That cortisol, that relaxation, that lowering of the stress was very short-term. Now the problem is it's become a 24/7 thing. You've got your work to think of, you've got your finances to think of, you've got all the responsibilities that you have around your home, around, in life. So there's a lot more constant buzz that's going. Your brain's perceiving a continuous buzz of things going on and responsibilities. And so that cycle of stress and cortisol production and fire due to that stress in your body is constantly active. And so over time, your water reserves, your cortisol reserves kind of burn out. They empty out, and then you have something called a burnout of extreme fatigue, lethargy. and in very severe cases, like, it goes to like depression, serious mental health problems. So, that's what I try to get as a very important point across when I talk about stress, is that like stress is like a warning sign. It starts off as anxiety and over stress, but over time, if you don't solve that extreme stress, it becomes a burnout. It becomes something worse like depression. So managing your stress as soon as possible and as early as possible is essential. And that's where things like herbs, like ashwagandha adapts how your body is producing that stress hormone. So instead of it being on overdrive, it tapers it down. Let's say if it's too weak, then it can bring it up, So that's where an adaptogen, it adapts your body based on the needs that it has at the moment. So there are different herbs that work as the adaptogens, but ashwagandha is a very effective one for people that are in high stress, anxiety. That's a good idea to work on. I've mentioned things, the way I kind of see things too when it comes to stress is, you want to work the adrenals, you want to work that cycle of, that water, minimizing water, that cortisol release, right? But if you're going to the root cause, you're going to work at the brain, right? How is the brain perceiving the stress? How is the brain creating the signal to create that cortisol and taper down the stress? So, I don't know if you ever heard me talk about serotonin and GABA, but these are just, they're neurotransmitters that are essentially brain chemicals that calm you down. And so when you're first stressed out, the first response that your brain has to calm you down is to release serotonin and GABA, which are just relaxation brain chemicals. The problem is that because people eat poorly, because they're constantly stressed, because they sleep terribly, or they're not digesting and absorbing their foods properly, they never replenish that first line of defense, right? The brain's line of defense of dealing with stress, because the brain will release these brain chemicals as the first line and then go to the rest of the adrenals to turn off that cycling of cortisol, to turn off the fire of inflammation, of stress, right? But so that's why I say, like, for me, it's the priority is always the brain. The brain should be the main focus, especially when it comes to stress, is working with things like magnesium, B vitamins, folate, things that are, heavily found in meat, things that it's very difficult to get. Like, for example, B12 is very essential in that process of creating these brain chemicals. And, if you're not eating meat, you're not getting adequate levels of B12. So people that are on a vegetarian or vegan diet absolutely must make sure that they're supplementing and getting the B vitamins that they may be missing out through their diets, right? For people that are, eating fairly well all the time, I still think there is an effect of taking a supplement, especially if the person's like eating decent and they're for me, supplements are called augmented lifestyle interventions. So lifestyle intervention would be like eating well, nutrition, exercising, sleeping. That's a lifestyle intervention. An augmented lifestyle intervention would be supplementation. So you're giving the body that extra boost, that extra dose of things that maybe they might not be absorbing as effectively from their food, but they can get it from a supplement that's created well, that's high quality, that's made to be absorbed much more efficiently. It's kind of like you're giving your body these specific nutrients in a very concentrated dose that allows your biochemistry to catch up, right? It's like diet and nutrition and sleep can do this, but in a much slower fashion. It'll take a lot more time. Supplements are the fast forward button to that healing process. And so that's why I'm like, when people are feeling stressed, they want to feel better tomorrow, or today, right? They don't want to wait 3 months from now after they've done all the right things and, they fixed their sleep and whatever to feel better. They want to start feeling better now. And so that's why I go with things like, for me, magnesium hits all those points. It's not expensive. it's something that when people take, they notice a difference, and they always come back to me and say like, dude, like this magnesium you recommended, like I feel so much better. And like, it's to me, it's like, I don't want to complicate things either, right? This biochemistry can be extremely complicated. And the general population doesn't care about that. They just care about what do I have to do to get to feel better, and make it as easy as possible. So, I use my biochemistry to simplify that, and I give them the kind of path that they should be taking in order to get to where they need to go. So it's all about for me, at the end of the day, health is all about simplicity. If you can keep things simple, keep them constant, and have a system, but it doesn't have to be too rigorous, right? You can have some flexibility in that, but as long as you know where you're going and why you're doing things, and supporting the body in the right way, bit by bit, every single day, at the end, the long term, you're going to be eons ahead everybody else, right? Like, most people wait until they're extremely sick to wake up and be like, how am I in this position right now? I'm screwed. I'm on 3 meds. Like, how do I stop this? I don't want to be on this, and it's like, what I try to do is have people wake up as early as possible, and get to things as early as possible, because the sooner you work on them, the sooner you get better. And that's really like the message I try to get across with, especially when it comes to stress. Like I told you, stress can get way worse if you don't deal with it earlier.
100%, man. I love that. Fantastic. I think to summarize that, so firstly, with stress, you want to address that straight away when it comes up. And that's something I'm big with my clients, is to find those trigger points, right? When it happens to you, when you feel you're emotionally eating, or, that when these things happen, find the trigger first. From what you're saying, things like adaptogens such as ashwagandha can be great in kind of regulating your body when it comes to stress, right? And just reducing kind of those stress levels, right, within your body. And the cycle, fantastic. And then regarding supplementation, that's kind of a augmentation of your lifestyle, right? So the foundation is your sleep, your nutrition, your exercise, and you can get the right vitamins, minerals, and stuff through your food. However, taking a supplement is like, boom, that is like the concentrated form of what you need. There's no harm in taking it. If there is an issue with your food, then this is like the backup to ensure that you definitely get the right things. Is that about kind of a summary of the stuff that you spoke about there? Yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly. And one thing I wanted to add to that is that the biggest issue with supplements is that not all supplements are created equal, right? There's a lot of there's so many products out there. There's so many companies, and it's become a huge business, right? So a lot of companies are in it, for making a quick buck, and they just market things well. You can market garbage and hot garbage, and people are going to buy it. If it's marketed well, they're going to be like, oh, well, I'll spend $30 on that piece of hot garbage. So that's really what my brand is all about. That I'm passionate about the supplement industry. I'm passionate about choosing the right supplements for the right person. So I try to educate people, like, what things they should look out for, what things they should what things they should not invest in. It's a very complicated process, right? And I'm working on making tools that will help people really select the right things that they need, and look at a label and say, okay, like, this is a good product versus this product. But also, not all supplements are made equal, and people need to be very vigilant of where they're buying from, and really looking for quality, which in and of itself is a whole other conversation. But I won't get into that. I just want people to be aware, is that, like, just because it says magnesium on the bottle does not mean it's the same as a top, high quality magnesium glycinate, which will be absorbed, much more effectively and used by your body much more effectively. So, I'm not sure if you heard the expression, like, some people will say that supplements are expensive pee. It's not really a lie, right? Like, a lot of products, if they're not quality ingredients, you are just going to pee them out, and they are just going to come out, and you're not going to absorb everything, and you've just wasted, money, right? So it's really about picking the right product and using the right things at the right time as well, too.
That's a really interesting point you touched on there around the quality of supplements, because you're right. Sometimes you can just piss out the supplement, you waste the money. So how, for the audience listening, how can they go about, in the simplest way, finding the best quality products? Is it to do with price? Is it to do with how it's manufactured? And what would be some pointers for them?
I would say when it comes to the supplement industry, one thing that I've noticed and I've really observed clearly is that you pay for what you get for. If you pay $10 or like very cheap for a fish oil, for example, from the pharmacy, and you go and you open the bottle and it smells like rotten fish, like you paid for what you got for, right? They're really, I mean, cheap supplements are a huge waste of money, in my opinion. They're probably even a net negative because of all the crap they might put inside these capsules, or they might, the tablets they make, they might put glue in them and special things that are just like binders and things that you don't want to be absorbing, right? You need to go with quality, either powders or capsules, in my opinion, have the cleanest things. There are some brands that are, we call them professional grade supplements. So these are brands that are sold by a doctor, by a clinician, by somebody who knows what they're talking about. You won't find them, let's say, on a pharmacy shelf. You won't find a lot of these on Amazon either. These are, I hate using the word pharmaceutical, but you can, if you want to simplify, they're like pharmaceutical grade supplements. So there's supplements that have gone through rigorous testings. The companies that make them are doing testing themselves, are checking, are making sure that the raw ingredients that they receive are clean and don't have any contaminants in them. That costs a lot of money, right? So a lot of people are just going to be like, cut the corners, or they're going to hire somebody else to do it. And personally, I don't trust companies that have other companies test their product. How do you know? Like, you don't know what the kind of testing they're doing. They can tell you whatever they want to tell you, right? The only way you can guarantee whether your product is clean and top stuff as a supplement company is you make it yourself, and you control everything that's coming in, and you manage the whole manufacturing of the product. And that's the biggest issue in the supplement industry, is that like a lot of supplements are being made randomly by the different companies, and companies are just using the contract, and they're putting their label on the product. So there are a few pointers that people could look for. Is I made a post yesterday on this, but if you see like things like artificial colors, you see soy in your product, you see things that are seed oils, for example. There's some products that like whey proteins that have seed oils in them. That to me is like a huge red flag, because what serious supplement company that cares about people's health is going to put a seed oil in there, like sunflower oil or canola oil, to like have people, these people who are drinking protein shakes are drinking them every single day, every time they work out. Like you're giving somebody an inflammatory oil while they're taking a natural supplement that's supposed to increase their health, right? So those are a few things that I would point out that people could look for. The other thing is on a label, the more details you see, like concentrations, like let's say they'll give a herb, they'll give like the concentration of the active ingredient in there. That's a company that has went and looked at the actual ingredient they use and checked to see how much of the active ingredient is in their raw material. Simply said is, if you look at a product label, look to see something that has a lot of details. Obviously, you don't want to have too many other non-medicinal ingredients in there, but as long as you look at the supplement facts or the medicinal ingredients and there's a lot of information in there, that to me is a telltale sign. You might also see like trademarked raw materials. So the companies that are using trademarked ingredients are using ingredients that have some scientific research behind it, that are actually, a bit above and beyond. And let's say just putting like a pure ashwagandha and writing ashwagandha 200 milligrams, but not telling you, which ashwagandha it is or how much of the active ingredients of this ashwagandha are in there. So, overall, simply said, look for a lot of details on your product labels. Avoid artificial anything, colors, sugars, just like avoid that stuff completely. And soy, if you see soy on your bottle, it's not a good product. Don't take it.
Great, man. That makes a lot of sense. So details on kind of the back of the supplement nutrition label are very important, especially if they're trademarked. That's going to show that it's quality. Price, obviously, usually the more expensive is going to be more tested, higher quality ingredients, more regulation going through, that kind of thing. That's super useful, man. Really, really useful. Great, dude. And then last point I wanted to touch on today was the importance of weight training. So I saw that you did a list of a few things that really changed your life, and in that was weight training. And to me, as a fitness guy that loves lifting weights, I was like, this is fucking great, man. So I did a thread the other day on Twitter regarding the importance of having high level of muscle mass for your health, right? And there's a lot of research that actually backs having lots of muscle, weight training, strength training specifically. So talk me through kind of weight training and why that's been so important for your health.
Well, I would say really it's been like a foundational aspect of my entire life, since I was 16 years old. Everything, I was the guy that all his friends made fun of him how much he was training, right? Like I would be training, this is like 2020 was like the first year that I just stopped. Like there was no gym. My training was cut like completely. I would reach the peak early 2020. It was the best physique I've ever been in. Leanest, most jacked, everything was great. And then 2020 hit and it was just like, couldn't move, couldn't do anything, couldn't even go outside. It was just like, it was ridiculous. And, the gyms opened up very briefly and then shut down again. And so like, it took me like a good 6 months to decide like, hey, like they're never opening up the gyms for a long time now. I got to take action and I got to start working out. So I bought a barbell, bought weights, bought everything and started training again at home. But for me, why has weightlifting been so important to my life is I would say just feeling energized. I noticed, when I cut my training in 2020 because of COVID and everything, just mentally, like you go crazy. Like you just don't feel yourself, especially if you're a person that has been training all their lives, right? And then I would have these questions like, how can people live, an entire lifetime without ever lifting a weight or ever like releasing that stress? For me, it's like the techniques, the movement themselves just like drain stress out of my body. And so for somebody like me who's a little bit more of a type A personality, go kind of guy, which I'm assuming you are as well,
Yeah.
we need that sort of that release, because if we don't, like our minds go crazy and overactive, and that stresses us out and it's just not beneficial. And there's a lot of people that are suffering through the same things and they don't even know it. It's just, it's a concept of laziness or not wanting to get out there and start. But, it doesn't have to be always about going to lift weights either. It could be about going to walk, just taking a long walk. That's, that in and of itself for people that are starting, I strongly recommend that, because just a basic fundamental thing like walking, you start off at 10 minutes and then you increase by 5 until eventually you're walking for like 1 or 2 hours. You come home and you're like, oh wow, like I it wasn't a strenuous workout of lifting weights, but it was something. So at the end of the day, like exercise should not just be only about lifting weights. It should be a life thing. Everything you do should be about either, I have moments now where I do things and I just get into a deep squat just to stretch out my hips because I've been sitting down for a long time. I think for me, one also a very, very key thing, if you're exercising and if you're weightlifting, it's about the recovery as well, because you can overdo it. And I would say when I got, my mental health problems and my severe stress, I could tell you that I was working out like a maniac. I was working out early 5 a.m. workouts and pushing my body. And, it was just, it's also, training could be a net negative depending on the state your body is in. So, recovery and training has to be done, but recovery and rest is for me is much more important, because you can work out like a maniac for weeks and weeks and weeks. And if you don't recover, you're gonna hit a wall eventually, and you're gonna have much more serious health problems after that. So it's about finding that balance, right? Like weightlifting for me is life. I recently I've been doing a lot of Olympic weightlifting and just doing like the really aspect of lifting weights and building that general strength. For back in the day, I used to have severe lower back problems and pains, and that's been completely eliminated because of training. Now, especially in the 21st century lifestyle that we're living, we're constantly sitting. And so your glutes, your hamstrings, your entire posterior chain is completely inactivated for 8 hours straight for most people, right? And so, why, people come 5 years later or 2 years later, and after they've been in the workforce and they've got lower back pains everywhere, like it's because they've never worked on strengthening the foundational structures of their entire physique. And if there's one thing that people kind of avoid is training legs and not training the posterior chain. For me, one of the biggest life changers of my training career, after having trained for over 16 years, was really building up my posterior chain, my glutes, my calves, my hamstrings. That changed my training completely after that. It's like you reach a new level of strength once those muscles become very, very strong. And that to me is one of the most, like, a very important chapter of where I elevated my training and elevated my well-being, is once I started focusing on that. It took me 10 years to 50, almost, I would say, like, I started training calves and hamstrings maybe like 3-4 years ago, like very well. But until then, like, it was just, you have a lot of imbalances, right? If you train and you don't train things evenly and train the important structures like your hips, your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings, all these things that support your body all day long, right? You're gonna have issues down the line. So training is important, but quality training is essential for your well-being. So I obviously I urge people to go look into that. Work with people like you, Oliver, who you definitely know what you're doing, right? Your results speak for themselves. So people should look, if they're looking to get results and they're looking to feel good and get the quality physiques they're looking for, they need to look for people that have either done it before or that are currently doing it and know their shit, essentially. So that's it.
For sure, man. I appreciate the kind words there. And you touched on some great points there. I think definitely around the posterior chain is huge. If you're a desk worker, if you're somebody that sits all day, get those fucking hip thrusts in, man. It's going to, reduce a lot of the lower back pain, right? A lot of lower back pain is from weak glutes, weak hamstrings, heavy Romanian deadlifts, right? These are really good posterior correcting exercises. Upper body, things like face pulls, fantastic for opening up kind of your chest and your back, your rear delts. And you touched on a really good point around kind of balance, right? Because, if you are going balls to the wall with exercise, weight training 5-6 days a week, but you're not sleeping, you're not eating right, you're not walking and doing the mindfulness stuff, you're just going to be even more stressed. And we've talked about stress already, right? And the issues that you can have from overexerting yourself and that band, right, going a bit too wide. So that's super, super important. And I advocate for a lot of walks. If you're combining it with heavy weight training, anything that's kind of low intensity that allows your body to recover but kind of stay moving can be really, really good for you. And I think walking definitely is the best for that. So fantastic, John. I think we're out of time now, but I just wanted to say a massive thank you for coming on, dude. You've you blown my mind with some of the stuff I've learned today. So it's been great. I'm sure the audience is the same. Before we round off, do you just want to share where people can contact you, where they can find you, and where John Constas is online?
Perfect. So thank you so much, Oliver, for being here, and it was a great chat, and I appreciate you taking the time to have. It's been awesome. For those of you who want to find me, I'm on Twitter for now. Master Twitter, so at John Constas, all one word, JOHNCONSTAS. You can find all my information up there. My link to my website is there as well.
Fantastic.
Again,
well, thank you,
Oliver. I really appreciate it, man.
Anytime, dude. Well, guys, make sure you check out John on Twitter. Some fantastic content there for you to consume and to understand lifestyle medicine and health. If you did enjoy the podcast, give it a 5-star rating, guys. We really appreciate that. We want to get this message and these conversations out to more people. And have a great day. Thanks again, John.
Thank you.